Hi everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and that is Connor. We are going to talk about Atlanta episodes 1 and 2 because they aired as a double. And the first episode is called The Big Bang. The second episode is called Streets on Lock. We'll start spoiler free because it is a first episode situation. The second of the season because we've got 20 plus over the next
Oh, it
month and a half.
started.
This is like the calm before the storm. I think I said to you yesterday, this is the equivalent of someone like pecking someone on the cheek, then going away for 2 weeks, and then coming back and just going at it like rabbits on top of the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Atlanta, created by Donald Glover, set in Atlanta, and he is a sort of a, I don't want to say a loser, but he's kind of like he's failing at things, doesn't have a job. He's kind of struggling with life, but he wants to be like a manager for a rap artist who happens to be his cousin, and that's kind of the setup of the start of the plot. So he's down and out. The mother of his daughter, who they kind of still have a relationship, but she's kind of still dating people and wants rid of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
But he's living with her, but he has to pay rent, but he hasn't got the money to do that.
yeah. His parents don't even want him in the house because they know he'll ask for money and
Yeah.
things like that. Um, I have to say, this is now the second new show we've covered, and I'm just counting the start of September as the start of the fall season,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah.
Um, and I've kind of got similar feelings to this one as I did the last one we did, which was Startup.
Interesting, because I have vastly different feelings.
And what I mean by that is I think there's some great moments in this, and I think it's making some great points. I'd probably argue it's better because of the points it's making, but at the same time, I'm not super into it either.
Interesting, because I really enjoyed it,
Oh,
like a
well.
lot. Yeah.
I have a theory on that. I think I have a sneaking suspicion as to why.
Okay.
Well, it's not so much a why, but I can compare it to other things that also corroborate our feelings.
Okay. Cool.
Master of None,
Okay. Got you.
right? That is a show that we covered. That was a Netflix show that we covered last year. Had season 1 from Aziz Ansari from Parks and Recreation fame. Interesting how he also came from like a really good TV sitcom, as did Donald Glover, that I really liked. And they've both created their own things on other networks. But that was a show where I liked a lot of what it was doing, but I didn't find it that captivating in terms of like plot or just the sort of ongoing stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone else loved that. When we talked about that last year, everyone was into that except me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I thought it was bad. I think
It wasn't to the same extent as that we
Yeah.
were.
yeah. And I feel like kind of same thing about this. I've already seen a lot of praise for this online, and I see where that's coming from. I get it, but there's something about it just scene to scene that I'm just not finding all that interesting. And it's funny because they compared this a lot to Louis before it was starting, because that's also an FX show, and Louis is a very sort of like awkward real life kind of dramedy sort of thing going for
It's
it.
those semi-autobiographical things. Master of None is kind of like that as well.
Yeah. And I also don't like Louis. I watched 3 episodes of Louis, couldn't get into it.
I don't like Louis either.
That's interesting. I wasn't expecting that, but
Yeah.
fair. But I thoroughly want to say though that you should check this out. There is definitely quality there, and there's a lot of good things being brought up in this show. And we'll talk about some of those scenes in the spoiler section. But it's just not for me. And I can almost pinpoint now that I've had Louis, Master of None, and this, I can almost look at this exact like subgenre of like TV comedy and go, that is just not for me.
That's fair enough. I think I like it, Louis, whereas I just don't like the comedy. The actual comedy of it doesn't get me really, but the others I'm enjoying. So
Yeah, I think the other thing for me as well, the other complaint I would kind of have, and again this is compared to the last show that we talked about, which was Startup. When we reviewed that, we talked about how these streaming shows, they all go up at once. These binge watch shows have this different pace sometimes that's kind of poor because they expect people to just binge watch it, or they think because it's not week to week they can play a bit more loosely with it. And we praise Stranger Things for not doing that. We praise Stranger Things for having excellent pacing. Oddly, this is a show that's going to be on week to week. We got 2 episodes this week, and it's going to be 1 per week after this. But I honestly felt like, especially the second episode, I felt like that pacing was something that was more like a binge watch show.
I get you. The first episode I didn't feel it that much, but the second episode is kind of a whole microcosm of itself.
Yeah.
It's only really a few scenes, kind of spaced out across.
Yeah, it's because obviously we can't really talk about it without spoiling the first one, so we'll leave it for spoilers. But it's essentially there's not a whole lot of plot. There's just some like character stuff going on, which is fine. But it almost feels like this wants to be a hour-long show. It feels like this wants to be the 40 odd minutes instead of the 20.
Yeah, it's like 25
Yeah,
ish.
yeah, 20, 22 to 25, I think, depending on the
Yeah.
episode. And
The
it
thing
kind of
is,
yeah,
I get it though. I think this is the exact right place to have that episode. It's your second episode, so you're establishing your characters early on, and you're doubling it up with one that doesn't feel like that, so it doesn't feel like the entire show is going to be that. I feel like this is like
sure.
right. I feel like this second episode would have suffered a lot if it was a week later,
Yeah,
but
it would
having it
have.
next to the first one makes it kind of feel better.
I wonder if that was just what. I wonder if that's why they did that. Like they just looked at this and went, "This episode does not really work alone."
It's something that is obviously to look out for come episode 3. Is that also a similar microcosm episode that doesn't go anywhere, or is it kind of just playing weekly again after this?
So yeah, so the show is a dramedy, and I'm calling it that because it feels more like a drama, but there is definitely comedy throughout it.
It is funny, yeah,
Yeah, there is fun. There's definitely funny moments happening and there's stuff, but it also flips to really serious kind of moments as well, and it
definitely.
kind of interweaves them, which is a good skill. It's a great thing to have. So Donald Glover's very good. I like him a lot from Community, and he's good here as well.
Yeah, he's
It's,
good in everything I've seen him in.
and it's a very different character too. That's great. I don't know what else I want to say without spoilers. That's why I'm kind of struggling for words here.
Well, what do you think of the other characters? Like, you know,
Um, I thought Paperboy, who's his cousin, who's the rap artist, I thought um, he got more interest in episode two. I will say that. I will give episode two that positive. Him dealing with the repercussions of what happened in episode one was a lot more interesting than his character in the first episode, where he was just kind of this, you know, he's a
yeah,
rapper. That was like his entire character almost.
yeah. I think my favorite scene so far was one of the ones with him in episode 2.
Yeah. And then the third guy, Darius, how I say?
Yes,
He's just kind of there for comic relief. Let's be honest.
he is, but that's okay.
I know I'm not complaining, but that is his character. He's there to say really wacky stuff and act really weird, mainly
Yeah.
because he's high pretty much the whole time. But that's
Fair
his kind of purpose. So the show explores a lot of various issues, a lot of it to do with race because it is mostly a black cast. And whenever there is a white character, it tends to be pointing out something about the differences or how those white characters interact with the black characters and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's very much a social commentary
Yeah.
of the time. You know, it's very much
Um,
aware of
which,
today's issues.
don't get me wrong, I think that's why it's important to try for yourself, and I think that's why um, you're not going to hear a lot of like I've given some negative criticisms with pacing and things like that, and this has not been my style of like show, but you're not going to hear me criticize it too much because I actually think all the messaging it's sending across is mostly pretty on point.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially right now. Like there's one thing in episode two that's just probably the most hard hitting scene in the show.
Yeah.
Felt very relevant.
Do you know what is particularly sad? I'm currently watching the original series of Star Trek, and that is dealing with the same issues essentially.
You heard it here first. Atlanta is just Star Trek.
Well,
but
no. I mean, in terms of the social issues, it's kind of they're playing with the same ideas. It's sad that it's 50 years later and it's still the same stuff.
It's a little bit, yeah. That's a very true, poignant point, which we can't deny. So I think we'll go into spoilers here because I want to talk about some story points that are
That's
worth
cool.
mentioning from the first two. So full spoilers on from this point on for the first two episodes of Atlanta. So I think the standout episode or the standout moment, even though I criticised episode two as being the weaker of the two, the moment I'm talking about, of course, is in the police station when Aaron is, he's sitting there and he's waiting to be processed and whatever, and he's just being held till bail's ready to be posted, and all the other characters who are in there waiting with him. There's a lot of like different characters. I will say that I really wish I had subtitles for one of the characters who were speaking. The bald guy who was sitting in front of him.
Right.
Whenever he started talking, I could barely make out what he was saying.
Oh, could you not?
He was speaking so fast in a very thick accent, and he was kind of slurring his words as well. Like it was really thick.
Oh, I didn't particularly notice. I wasn't struggling.
I was just with him. Like everyone else was fine, but he was really bad to understand. I thought. Um, but the standout moment is there's this like sort of I guess crazy guy who
He's clearly mentally ill.
he's mentally ill. Yeah. Maybe I'm being insensitive, but just call him crazy. But he's mentally ill. He's in sort of like a hospital gown almost,
Yeah.
and all the other people in there who are in there often are all joking about him because he's here every week and he's always doing crazy stuff. And he drinks the toilet water in his cup, which everyone sort of cringes at. And
It's the fact that even Don Glover's character's like, isn't anyone going to help him? Like, he clearly needs help,
yeah, yeah,
not to be in a police station. And they're all just like, nah.
yeah. Well, it's poignant enough in and of itself. But this character is black. That is important because then, like another white cop walks in, and he cracks a joke about the mentally ill guy, in a relatively good-natured way. He's not necessarily making fun of him. He's just kind of like, oh, you're
He's
at it
drinking the
again.
toilet water again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not being overly malicious with the joke he makes, but then the mentally ill guy spits the toilet water onto the cop, and the cop takes out his baton, as do like three other cops, and they all start beating him up, and the guy is just screaming in pain and like terrified.
It's serious overkill.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's definitely the hardest hitting scene. It's the scene where I sort of sat up the most and was like, oh geez, right, okay, we're making some very serious points here, and
Yeah.
it's well done. And I think Donald Glover's reaction is perfect.
Yeah, definitely.
There's this like this isn't right, but this is incredibly awkward. Like he feels powerless, kind of thing, sitting there in the police station, and it's so it's making some very great points. And there's some other good scenes like that. I liked the scene you probably liked that we were hinting at. So because the end of episode 1 ends with there's been a shooting. That's why they're in the police station, is because there was a confrontation, people put out guns, and there was a gunshot. We still don't know exactly who got shot or who fired the shot or anything like that. It's all been very, hidden from us as the viewer right now. But basically this spreads that, the rapper Paperboy has shot someone, and Paperboy's out for a walk and he runs into these kids playing with a toy gun, saying, I'm shooting you like Paperboy did. And their mum comes up and is like, no, we don't play like that, don't you play with toy guns. And then Paperboy comes up and he wants to be like, no, like shooting people is wrong. Like he's horrified that this is what he's created.
This is like already like his legacy.
Yeah.
Even though he's only just started.
Like he hates this. And there's another scene before that as well that I think's really good in setting that up. In the diner when they're getting food.
Yeah.
And the waiter's like, oh, you're like Notorious and other 90s rappers and all that. And
Yeah, and the guy pulls up an article. It's like, is he Atlanta's Tupac? And I was just like,
yeah. There's some good stuff like that. And he was really creepy at the end as well when he's like, don't let me down, because I would never know what I would do if you let me down, with these crazy eyes, and then he walks off.
yeah,
I'm like, okay, good. This is the fan base.
yep.
But yeah, back to the mother. Like the mother's like horrified at what our kids are doing, but she turns out to be completely hypocritical, because as soon as he like proves to her that he's the rapper, she wants a photo. She wants a selfie.
She just drops everything, because at first she's really annoyed that this stranger is butting in on her parenting business, and he's clearly just trying to do the right thing, understandable. But then, as soon as she doesn't believe him at first, she doesn't even think she's heard of him until he starts singing the song.
Yeah, because it's been on the radio all morning, because he's been in the news, so the radio stations are all playing it.
Makes sense. But then, immediately she flips and she just like shouts to a kid, like, "Go get my phone. I want a picture."
Yeah, and it's the way her complete expression changes. She starts being all smiley and flirty.
Yeah.
And it's just like, again, points, social commentary.
The thing I noticed as well is, where she gets the kids in for the selfie?
Yeah.
The kid points the gun at the camera.
I actually did not notice that. That's
After all that, he pulls up the gun and his pose is he's like aiming it at the camera.
Speaking of him taking photos with people, the photo with the cop when he's leaving the police station.
Yeah.
When the cop comes up and is all smelly, oh, I want a photo with you.
It's like back to back.
He's just standing there looking like he hates everything in the
I think my
world.
favorite bit of that though is after he doesn't do the back to back. After the cops are like, "Yeah, do it," and he looks at the photos, he flicks through them. It's like, "Yeah, perfect." Crack me right up.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, that's almost like the commentary there is that we project an image onto these like famous people almost.
Yeah,
And that's almost like a really over the top absurd like exaggeration of it, but the idea that he doesn't even see that
he doesn't even see that he could be a criminal. He sees the celebrity persona.
well, I wasn't going to say that. I mean, that's a good point, but I was going to say like even when he looks at the photo, and even though he's not doing the pose, he still sees it as perfect. Like
Yeah,
it's because he
like,
wants it to be perfect, so it's perfect.
yeah, yeah. It's both of them. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's also good commentary. There's a lot of, and that's not even specific to race. Obviously, a lot of the commentary is about racial interactions and stuff.
That one's more just about celebrity culture
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah, that one's just a very general thing. Um, but yeah, anything else we'd like to talk about? Anything else you want to bring up?
I don't think so.
Okay. What about the guy with the Nutella on the bus with the sandwich?
Oh yeah, that was strange. That was very strange.
I think the whole point was because there was a conversation with the father and Paperboy, like Ern's father and Paperboy,
Yeah.
where he says, "Oh, when he decides he's going to do something, he's going to do it, but he's going to do it on his terms." And I think the whole like the guy being like, "Take a bite of the sandwich," and him like, "No, I'm not taking a bite of that sandwich. I don't know where that's came from." um, I think that's the metaphor there. It's maybe a bit on the nose.
Also, did that imply he had something to do with the shooting as well? Because when he gets off the bus, he's got that dog, and you know because the episode opens with
Yeah.
it opens like a little bit towards the end of the episode, basically, and you have Darius say, "Oh, there's that bit. There'll be that dog." It's the same one.
Well, he's saying that because he thinks he's having deja vu, which was amusing in and
Yeah,
of itself. Because he never met the guy, so or the dog, so he wouldn't have recognised the dog in that sense. But
but it's the way he goes, "Oh, there's a dog there," and then there's the
yeah,
dog, and you see Donald Glover's character. He looks at it, and he kind of has that recognition.
that's a fair guess. Because the bus ride's just like an hour before that or something like that. So
Yeah,
maybe, yeah. I think Donald Glover's relationship with his ex is fairly well portrayed as well. When she picks him up at the police station at the end of the second episode,
yeah.
and he does get her to smile eventually. You know,
I
some
think
nice moments.
what I like most about it is even though they clearly have issues, they're both mature enough to try and put on a front for the kid at least.
Mm,
Like even if he's struggling to pay the rent, whatever, he's clearly there so that the kid can have the father around,
yeah,
and she's like willing to accept it to a degree,
and
which
everything.
is it's rare that you see that on TV. I
Yeah,
think.
and everything he's doing with the kid seems very like appropriate. Like with the exception of maybe dropping him off at his
the
parents,
parents,
so that
yeah.
he can go and meet Paperboy. Like everything else seems like nah. I mean he's good with the kid. His interaction with the kid is
But
very
even that's kind
positive.
of reasonably responsible. It's his parents. It's not like he's
Yeah.
just dropping the kid. It's a safe place to do it. So it's like it's sure he's blowing the kid off, but I guess in his mind he's thinking this could actually lead to money.
yeah,
So
which is
there's a
better
good reason for it.
long term for the kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I suppose we should actually bring up the white guy from the first episode, the
Oh, at the radio.
DJ guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whose entire thing is that he doesn't feel that Donald Glover's character's a threat, so he uses racial terminology around him. Whereas whenever like he's around anyone else who's black, he won't. He'll be too scared.
Yeah.
And it makes for quite a funny moment actually later in the episode when Donald Glover makes him tell the same story to Paperboy and Darius,
Yeah.
and he just kind of awkwardly sort of stumbles his way through it without, you know.
It's the way Donald goes completely around him and just kind of once he realizes it, he just bypasses him entirely. It's like, nah, don't need you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's almost like a power play. Like
Yeah.
the way he does that, and then at the end, it's like yeah, like I've succeeded going around you, so yeah, go away.
Yeah. It's also the way like because the white guy is there when Donald Glover's there putting the money under the door.
Yeah.
So it's like, does he know that he's there, like watching? Like, is it that much of a power play? Do you think?
He sees him go past because he tries to signal him. I don't know if he sees him actually put it under the door per
Mm,
se, but he knows he's on it later because it gets played. So,
yeah,
um, but no, yeah, yeah, look, trust, like, try the show. Like, I think a lot of people will love this show. It's just the tone and the pacing. It's just not my thing. Like, and I really like Donald Glover, so I was really game to be into this. But much like Master of None, um, which to be fair, I did watch all of because it was there and it was a binge watch thing.
it was easy to watch, wasn't it? Like
Yeah.
that, yeah.
I'm just, and typically we don't tackle comedies weekly here just because you often find it's
There's
difficult to
nothing
talk
to
about
talk
them.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think this is a bit different though.
this is a bit different. Yeah, because I'm obviously we get a fair bit of social commentary in those two episodes, and I
Yeah,
imagine that would probably carry forward. That said, I'm not super into it, so
I don't know. I'm definitely watching it either way. So it's up to you if you want to try episode three, see if the pacing sorts itself out. If it was just a way that they doubled it up for that.
all right. Well, what we'll do is we'll probably cover episode 3,
And go from
and
there. Yeah.
and I will see how I feel at that point. Especially since next week there's not a whole lot of other stuff starting. The week after that though is when the onslaught of TV starts, and
Yeah.
that's when it.
That's when this has to either impress next week for you and like,
Yeah,
or that's it.
yeah, because it's just going to be a time issue more than anything else once we get there. But seriously, do check it out. There's a lot of good things going on in it. I just the overall sort of feel of it isn't really doing much for me yet. But yeah, so let us know what you thought of the episodes in the comments below. Get us on Twitter as well at mild_fuzz. Like and subscribe and all that jazz. It helps us out a lot. And yeah, stay tuned for all the other news shows we're covering over the next few weeks. And there's a lot of them, so videos aplenty coming. So thanks for watching, guys. We will see you next time.